From the Brightside Tavern in Jersey City, New Jersey, it's In the Spotlight with Earl Morgan and Tinia Bland.
GoPro Radio Network listeners and watchers. This is Earl Morgan, your host for In the Spotlight, and I have with me today my trusty right hand, Tinia Bland. I can't do this without her. Boy, you have no idea. And we have two guests with us today that I'll let Tinia introduce because she's closer to them than I am.
Brother Jason and his wife Sharon from the Nation of Islam. And we're introducing today Justice or Else, the October 10th March to Washington. And Brother Jason is going to give us an update on why we're going, why it's pertinent, and what happened 20 years ago, that makes it so relevant that we do it again.
You got the floor, Jason.
Thank you. At this time, I'd just like to thank you for allowing me and my wife the opportunity to come on your show and speak about the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March. It's 10-10-15, Justice or Else is the theme for 2015. But 20 years ago, 1995, the theme for the Million Man March was atonement. And the reason why it was atonement, because in 1995, the black community was at war with itself. There was a lot of violence going on at the time. There was a lot of drug abuse. Families were being torn apart. And Minister Farrakhan saying that he saw the plot that was happening against young males at the time. There was a plot to arrest young men and for drugs and give them high sentences for petty crimes. And him seeing this, he started the Stop the Killing tour that went all over 52 cities in the country. And we had a lot of success in 1995 with the Million Man March. One of the successes that we had was after the Million Man March, crime went down in all of the cities of America. I don't know if everybody know that, but crime went down for a period of time. Not only did crime go down for a period of time in the cities, but also a lot of men went back home and atoned with their families. They went back home and became fathers again. Not only did a lot of men go home and atone with their families, but a lot of men joined religious institutions of multiple backgrounds. Not only did we join multiple institutions of multiple backgrounds of religious groups, we also joined political institutions and began to exercise some political power. And we gotta say that the backbone behind all of that was the women pushing us to get out there and make a stand for ourselves. So I just wanted to touch on what started it from the beginning.
Jason is a very diplomatic man. How long you been married?
6 years now, going on 7 years.
You're starting smart, see. You know, the first thing a married man has to learn is two very important words. Yes, dear. But the reason why I'm bringing that question up, the last Million Man March, and it was the Million Man March. I was there.
Yes.
And there were more than 1 million men.
Yes,
there.
It was.
I remember at one point I was actually trying to find somebody.
Absolutely.
in that mess. And I went to the front of where the speakers were.
Yes.
I thought maybe if I could look out, I could see them.
Mm-hmm.
That was dumb. I mean,
right.
You literally, I mean, it was so many people, your mind just
right.
refused to take it in. But there were some sisters who felt they were being left out.
Right.
And I listened to a lot of the chatter about that and why they felt that, why aren't the sisters there too? And let me see if Brother Jason can expound on why it was Million Man, not Million Man and Woman March.
Okay. Yes. The man is the backbone, and if he can get himself in order first, then he can come and he can be a better father to the children. He can be a better wife to his husband. He can be a better husband to his wife. He could be a better role model in the community. So it was about putting the man in order first, and then letting him take care of his responsibility.
Well, Tinia, I'm just going to, one other thing, I'm going to turn this over to you. Because being a sister, now this is a sister here who takes no prisoners, so she's going to have a lot to say about this. But at the time that this happened, I remember thinking hard about this, because not only was the nation talking about a million man, but years before that, when we had the Black nationalist movement, we had the same issues come up. And the Black Panther Party had a lot of issues around women and misogyny. And it's something, it's even an issue today in rap, which I don't listen to very much, but I know that's, they say some terrible things about the sisters.
True.
But on the other hand, we did say back in those days something very important about the women. We call them the culture bearers. Because they're the ones who do the teaching.
Absolutely.
And that was I thought that was very important and very true, having grown up with a black mother. And black aunts and uncles and nieces and nephews. The culture bearer is the woman. That's the one who starts it off.
That's right.
I remember when I was a very, very young man, 3 or 4 years old, my mother would take me to the library around the corner, Miller Branch, on Bergen Avenue. And we'd sit at a table, which is still there, incidentally. They don't make furniture like they used to.
No, they don't.
And read to me. Just get a book and start reading.
I don't know why that should be so outstanding, because that is what we're supposed to do.
The culture bearers. There it is. But that's just the point. My father was at work. And when he came home, he was, let me tell you, he worked on the railroad. And because that's where all the money was in this town. And, he wasn't culture. The only culture he wanted to bear was straight to bed. He was tired. So that's how that worked. But yet and still, we tend to push the women back. Even the SCLC did that. We talk about Ella Baker and all the women now. We're beginning to finally bring them out of the shadows. But for a long time, it was just Martin and Jesse and all the guys. But behind all of that was the women.
Absolutely.
You could not have had that without the women.
That's right.
So this time, are the women going to be at the Million Man March, or what? Are we still?
Invited?
Yes, the women are invited this time to the 20th anniversary. Also, children are invited too.
Oh, so this is family.
Absolutely.
I tell you, I knew that. I watched Minister Farrakhan on News One Now the other day.
Oh, yes, he was there the other day.
And that question, Roland Martin asked that question right away, because he knew he had to put that one to bed. But now it'll be the whole family. But there was a reason for that, though, wasn't there, that they did the men?
Yes.
And you said it was about the brothers going to jail?
Right. It was about the men accepting responsibility, because we have fallen short to our duty to God. So it was basically to reconnect the man back to God and let him be the man that God intended for him to be.
Well, when you think about it, Tinia, so many people in jail, so many men in jail. That it has now surfaced to be a problem again.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask for the report card, the 20-year report card since the Million Man March. What is the report card for the black man?
The report card for the black man, we're basically going backwards once again. The problem now is that we need our unity more than ever now. And our unity is the only thing that's going to get us out of the situations that we're in. If you observe any other culture, you'll see that their unity helps them to survive in the community. I just want to give one example of the Latino community. If you see they struggle, you could see there was one time when a Latino store would be on every other corner, but now it's right there next to each other without even going the distance, and they get along so well in their community, and that's a sign that we need to look at so that we could learn how to work in unity for our survival. Because if we don't come together in unity for our survival, we're going to see ourselves being pushed out of our communities like we're doing now. So now is the time for unity like never before for our survival.
You know, you mentioned that, and
We talked about that today.
we had a conversation today earlier about what is going on in this city with a push for gentrification.
Yes.
And we live in a black community. Well, actually, our community was never completely black. It was
Right.
always whites and some Hispanics, but it's predominantly African American.
Yes.
I don't know if we can say that anymore. You know, all of a sudden, the houses that we lived in that were redlined.
Right. Exactly.
You know, you go to the bank to get a mortgage, they give you a calendar and
Right.
they throw you out. But you want to get
Right.
the mortgage. Now, you know, and we had for sale. Remember, Tinia, the for sale sign?
I do.
We had for sale signs all up and down our block.
Right.
Couldn't sell the houses. Now, the houses change hands and you don't even know.
Right.
You cannot
Exactly.
find a house for sale.
That's right. There are no for
Right.
sale signs anymore because our community is now becoming an upscale community.
Yes.
And we're attracting people from all over the place.
Yes.
We have our community is international.
It is. It's
Yes.
the UN, right?
Yeah. Well, we have Japanese,
Yes.
Egyptian,
Egyptian.
Jewish,
Arabs, Jews.
You're right.
Yes.
We have everybody on our block.
Yes.
In that one little stretch between Crescent and Park, in that one little stretch.
Yes.
And we're a little concerned that we're losing our place in the city.
Yes.
And about unity, boy,
It's a tough one.
that's a tough nut to crack.
In order for there to be unity, excuse me, I
Go
apologize.
ahead.
In order for there to be unity, there has to be love. We have to have enough love in our communities first in order for there to be unity. And why are our homes being taken from us in our own communities? It's because we don't pool our dollars together as a community. The building, split that cost and just keep going and keep going. But what takes the unity? We have to have enough love for each other.
You know, I think we also have to learn how to save money.
Right.
That it's not about the clothing on your back, the house that you own, the car that you drive. You know, that is really about building wealth.
Right.
So, and if you build wealth, then when you're when that brother or sister comes to you in need of the community, in need
Right.
of opening that store, you can afford to because you
Right.
pool your money. But my second point, and then we're going to go to break, is that I think we have to learn forgiveness.
Yes.
You know,
Absolutely.
So, I mean, atonement, I think we need to learn some forgiveness.
Well, yes. It was actually, that's one of the steps in the atonement. It's a 8-step process. And I just want to go over, the Jews do that every year. The Jews go through a process of atonement. When they come together, they apologize for wronging each other, and then they go back out and they conquer the world. Because, you know, when, like you said, the power of forgiveness, that's strong. You know, when I forgive you and you forgive me, then we can move forward without the guilt and all the weight of the wrongdoing that's on our mind. Another thing I wanted to say.
We have to take a
Okay.
break. So hold that thought, and we will be back. Stick there, don't go nowhere. And the spotlight will be right back.
The Brightside Tavern, in my opinion, is the go-to because it's a comfortable place. Reminiscent of Cheers restaurant with a rectangular bar, where people coming in, seeing one another, communicating right away with one another. Besides the obvious, obviously, restaurant like this has very good food and very affordable pricing. With that being said, it's about attitude. The staff here is very friendly. I'd like to think that I have something to do with that, and that really at my age, I want to just please people. It's not all about the money. I want people to have a great experience, and the people I hire catch on to that, okay? And it shows. And we have a lot of fun with our customers, and we allow them to be themselves as if almost they were home. We have 2 other rooms where people are seeking to have parties there because we know we make it comfortable. Each room is almost like an entertainment center with karaoke built in, musical videos, and the like. Again, people walk out saying, wow, I had a good time at the Bright Side.
Welcome to In the Spotlight with Earl Morgan and Tinia Bland. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being well, and thank you for being my partner.
I thank you very much for reminding. The last time I was here, audience, I had to leave. Tinia did a great job of filling in. I knew she would. She's done it before. But we were just about, when we went to break, Sister here was going to relate something to us about mothers.
We're back on Justice or Else. This is the October 10th march to Washington, D.C. And this is a family-friendly march this year. And that's very important because the first part of this, we realized that it was about atonement. And it was the men that needed to learn how to be the best fathers. So, accept responsibilities. And everything that meant, coming home to the families and taking care of them. But now we'll ask Sister Sharon, as mothers, as nurturers, what is our role?
Us as mothers and nurturers, we're the first teachers of our children. So when we're taken from the home, going back to Dr. Morgan's point, where his mom was able to take him to the library and sit down and read to him, we don't have, a lot of us women don't have that opportunity now. So when a woman is absent from the home, who's raising her babies? Who's raising our babies? You have the television, you have the next door neighbor, or the children are just raising themselves. Who's cooking for them? Sarah Lee, Hungry Man. We're taken out of the home, so
Popeye, McDonald's, and Burger King.
Right, and it's all poisoning our family. So to get the black man back in order is relevant. It's necessary for them to get out there and work, while us as mothers and role models for our babies, we're able to stay home with them and raise them the way that they should be, and that will cut down on the crime in the communities. It might even stop the crime in the communities.
But Sister Sharon, let's get to it. What is our responsibility in getting that man back home? And I say that because I think some of us forget that it takes a couple to make that child. And, you know, as my father told me before we left home, take this with you. It will take a father to also do his part in rearing that child to become an adult. Right. And men make men. We make big boys.
Yes, ma'am. But we, on that point, we also have to have our sons be in touch with their feminine side, so that when they grow into men, they'll be in touch with their wives and their female children and their mothers. So it always has to be a balance.
But don't.
And the atonement between a husband and a wife, or a male and female, or a father and his daughter, or mother and son, or however the two sexes come together, it always has to be atonement. And out of the atonement comes love and unity. That's how we get our families back.
So what is the plan for forgiveness, for women forgiving, so that men can come home?
Well, for that, the wrong has to be pointed out by both or by one, and then you work towards the 8 steps of atonement. But the wrong has to be pointed out first.
So I take it we're going to do some listening instead of a lot of talking.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Why should women feel comfortable going to the Million Man March this time when so many sisters honestly felt left out? Now, let me just go a little further. I think that there's a time when men should be allowed to bond. Right. And I mean often. Right. There are things I don't want you to bring home. Let me be clear. Right. Don't bring it home. Right. Work it out so you can, when you come home, you want to come home. You want to be that good man, because there are things you can say to your brother that perhaps you can't say to me. Right. How do you feel about that?
Well, in terms of What are you talking
Does
about?
he get bonding time? Do you believe men should have bonding time?
Absolutely. And once my husband comes home from work or whatever, the house should be clean. The children should be relaxed. That way, when he comes home, his mind is at ease. He don't walk from chaos into chaos. He's already being beat up by the world, beat up by what's going on the job. So when he comes home, it should be at peace and at ease. He should be able to sit down and relax for a little while without the children, jumping all over him. Give him a few minutes and then, engage and bond with the family.
Tinia, one of the things that I noticed about this whole business, having, of course, grown up with men, we were an intact family.
Right.
Lord knows we had a lot of problems, but we were an intact family. I always had a father and I always had a mother, and there was 7 to 8 of us.
Yes,
And what the interesting thing that happened as my parents got older and the world got crazier, the kids and my siblings, the youngest ones, began to buy into the craziness.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother and father never understood it. They went to their grave wondering what that was all about.
Yes, sir.
But one of the things I wanted to mention about the brothers in the nation and that bonding, having come through all that experience, having lived in a neighborhood where most of the people had mothers and fathers, and going to the church I went to, and I had an idea of what a man ought to be.
Right.
They set a sort of a standard there, a floor.
Right.
This is what men do. This is how men comport themselves. This is how men carry themselves. This is how men dress. The brothers in the nation, a lot of my friends, my Jewish friends who don't understand, they have some issues with the brothers in the nation. And they have some issues with me for not condemning them. I said, look, you got to understand something. The brothers in Islam, you see them coming down the street. They're coming from somewhere and they're going somewhere, and they're stepping lively to get there, and they look good.
Right.
Like Brother Jason there. I was just going to say, Jason looks like the Muslims I always knew look. And now we have young men that don't know how to, they don't wear ties because they don't know how to tie one.
Right.
Why don't they know how to tie one? There's no man in the home.
Right.
That's what men do.
Right.
That's who taught me.
Right.
Right. When a culture gets to the point that their men have their pants hanging off their behind, and a woman can see their underwear or their behind, what do we do as women?
Well, you let her answer that.
I was about to say, that's a tough question.
I've been waiting for a good answer to this.
Yes, ma'am. Well, sometime in the communities when I see young men with their pants hanging down, I say, excuse me, sir, your pants is full. And they be like, oh, yes, ma'am, excuse me. And they pull their pants up. And that they show that respect. When you address them with respect, being comical, there's truth in it, they accept it better.
But you know something now, our community, no matter where we go, we are the same. So I don't do it with a comical voice. I do it as if I'm your mother. That's right. And that you are hurting me because you're hurting yourself and you're hurting us all, because you hurt the community, because someone is always watching you. Someone is always looking to you, is looking up to you. So what are you teaching? Because we're all teachers. I believe that we are all teachers. So if we are all teachers and someone is always watching, I don't think this is an example that you can afford to set. Right. So I don't do it with comedy. I say, you know what, you're hurting me because you're hurting our community. I can see your underwear, and the reason why they're called underwear is because exactly.
Yes,
well, yes.
Because I always want to ask a man, why?
It goes back to how we grew up when you said it takes a village to raise a child. I could say something to your child that you probably can't. And I remember one time I was walking and I was cursing and my neighbor heard it. And she said, Jason, was that you cursing? And I started to hesitate. I was like, I didn't say no. I just shook my head no. So she was like, oh, okay, all right.
I just thought.
By the time I got upstairs, my mother knew already, got beat. went back downstairs, had to go apologize for cursing in front of her, but that's how we were. That's a real example of unity in the community. It takes a village to raise a child, but nowadays the neighbor don't know your children. I don't know the neighbor's children, so we got to get back to that village of.
Well, you know, interestingly enough, about that same thing, I can remember as a very young man, very kid, really a child. People would just say to me, people I knew or didn't know, adults, many men and women, boy, you get yourself an education. Now, these were people who often didn't really have an education.
Right.
You know, they didn't have that. They went to whatever grade in grammar school, maybe a little high school.
Right.
And, I mean, I'm not talking about once. I used to hear that 6-7 times a week.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
You heard it till you got sick of hearing.
Right.
But they did that because they cared.
Right.
And the same thing with when you were saying about your mother. There's a woman on my block named Big Mama. Big Mama sat in the window on Communipaw Avenue all day. I believe Big Mama had a potty because she never left that. And you know, if you did something wrong, boy, I'm gonna tell your mother on you. Get out that street. And she would tell your mother on you.
Right.
Now, I hated Big Mama. When I got old enough to understand the world,
right,
I understood Big Mama.
She was a blessing.
She was important because she sat there and said, I'm going to make sure these kids do right.
Right.
And my mother, when she came home, she would tell her, and you know, you got it for 2 reasons. One, you did something you shouldn't have done.
Right.
And 2, you embarrassed her.
Right. Right. Right.
You know, because she, boy, first thing it says, boy, why did you do that? As if you could come up with some great answer that would save you from the butt kicking you were about to get.
Right.
But there was no answer.
But you know what? I want to bring that back to 2015. Okay, so we had the Big Mamas. Mm-hmm. We had the mothers and fathers in the community that said, get an education, don't be like me, because I heard that. Because I think that was the age of the winos.
Right, right.
And they would be sitting on the corner, which I say, I don't know what it was called, but they'd be sitting there.
Singing, doing all types of things.
Mm-hmm. They were alert enough to tell you as you walk by to go to school, don't be like
Don't be like me.
Right.
Yes.
And that was very
yes.
Now, my question is, what happened to the Big Mamas? What happened to the fathers of the community? Because we are the adults of the community. We are the elders.
People make money off of our ignorance. So when we wake up from ignorance and start to do for ourselves, a lot of people are going to lose money. So their goal is we have to invest money in keeping the black community ignorant so that we can benefit. And that's the type of education that we need. When an airplane crashes, one of the first things that they look for is the black box. And the black box tells you what happened and why this airplane crashed. And that's the type of education that we need. We need an education that's going to tell us what happened and how we got in this condition so that when we get out of this condition, we'll never fall into this condition again.
Are we, yes, we're 1 minute away from a break, but I just wanted to add to that. That was a very good analogy.
Thank you, brother.
You know, I was a newspaper reporter for 40 years.
Yes.
So my job was to find out what happened, how, when, why, and what. The 5 W's and an H. And, you know, you sort of live by that. Before that, I wanted to be a nuclear physicist, which is a scientist who also wants to know.
Right.
Somehow in our community, we sort of got disconnected from that.
Yes. And
we have to get back to being able to tell a 16-year-old girl who may or may not have a child what she needs to do. I'm going to wrap this segment up. Please stay tuned. Don't go nowhere. We'll be back. We're going to have more conversation about this because this is a very, very important issue in our community right now.
I'm going to jump up 1 second and see where our guests are.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
Attention. Parents of children in Hudson County school districts including Harrison, West New York, Jersey City, Hoboken, and Union City. You may qualify for free or low-cost child care. The Urban League of Hudson County is providing parents with the opportunity to apply if eligible for before and after school care for children 3 and 4 years old. Find out how. Come to our offices or call at 201-451-8888 extension 186. Urban League of Hudson County.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.